Before there was Tinder, there was tea. But don't worry, we haven't gone full Downton Abbey on you. We're gonna break down what dating, or more accurately, courtship, was really like in Victorian England. First things first, dating as we know it today didn't exist in the Victorian era. The term courtship was used instead, and it was a precursor to marriage, not casual companionship. Courtship was serious, structured, and socially supervised business. Back then, the language of love was much more reserved and refined. The parlor was the main living room and the center of social activity in Victorian homes. Its primary purpose was to receive guests, and it was furnished with comfortable seating and decorated with elegant accessories to create a welcoming atmosphere for visitors. Servants, factory workers, and the working class generally had more freedom to pursue romantic relationships without the constraints of strict etiquette. Some couples even chose to elope, which was scandalous but not unheard of. Despite the emphasis on proper decorum and social expectations, secret romances did occur during the Victorian era. Young lovers who defied societal norms and eloped often faced significant challenges. They had to navigate the disapproval of their families and friends, as well as the risk of being shunned by their communities. Despite the obstacles, some couples were willing to take the risk to be together. Secret rendezvous, forbidden letters, and long-distance love stories were common during this time. And some couples even found happiness and fulfillment outside of traditional marriage. During courtship, the parlor served as the stage for romantic encounters between men and women. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and stay tuned for more historical tales. And remember, love knows no bounds, not even the bounds of time. What are your thoughts on Victorian dating customs? Would you have been a good Victorian gentleman or lady? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more historical tales. The room was typically furnished with plush sofas and armchairs, upholstered in fine fabrics, such as velvet or satin. These provided comfortable seating for the couple during their intimate conversations and allowed them to engage in close proximity without any hint of impropriety. In addition to the seating, the parlor boasted intricate floral patterns, which added to the romantic ambiance. These patterns served as a subtle reminder of the importance of beauty and aesthetics in Victorian culture and provided a visually appealing backdrop for the unfolding drama of courtship. Overall, the parlor was an integral part of Victorian courtship rituals, providing a private and respectable setting for men and women to express their romantic interest in each other. Victorians believed that open displays of affection were inappropriate, and any physical contact between a man and woman was strictly prohibited unless they were married. Well, it's time to delve deeper into that aspect of Victorian dating. Marriage was not only the ultimate goal of courtship, but also the primary reason for entering into it. Love might have played a role, but it was often overshadowed by societal expectations and practical considerations. The idea of getting married was deeply ingrained in Victorian culture, and it was seen as the most important event in a woman's life. Men were expected to provide for their families financially, and women were expected to dedicate their lives to their husbands and children. Marriage was also a way to maintain social status and respectability, and any sexual activity outside of wedlock was highly frowned upon. As a result, the pressure to marry was intense, particularly for women. They were expected to marry by their early 20s, and any delay in finding a husband could lead to being labeled a spinster, a term used to describe an unmarried woman who was considered to be beyond her prime. For men, they were expected to prove their financial stability and reliability before proposing marriage. This often meant having a steady income, owning property, and being able to support a family. Proposing marriage was a formal affair, and men were expected to do it in a respectful and dignified manner. This typically involved asking for the woman's hand in marriage and getting the approval of her parents or guardians. Once engaged, the couple would set a date for the wedding and begin planning the event. The wedding ceremony itself was a grand affair, often involving multiple attendants, elaborate attire, and a reception with food, music, and dancing. It was a celebration of the union of two families and the start of a new life together. However, this didn't stop them from expressing their feelings in a more subtle and indirect way. For example, stealing a kiss while out strolling or holding hands across a crowded room was unheard of. Instead, flirtation happened through meaningful glances, coded fan gestures, and witty conversation. On the other hand, love letters were a common and socially acceptable way to confess one's feelings. Ah, the classic love letter. How hopelessly romantic, yet also incredibly convenient for us history buffs because it provides us with an intimate glimpse into the hearts and minds of those who lived in the Victorian era. Imagine sitting by the fire, candlelight flickering on the wall as you read the words of a bygone era. Love letters offer a unique window into the Victorian era, revealing the hopes, dreams, and desires of people who lived long ago. They allow us to vicariously experience the excitement and anticipation of a bygone era when emotions were expressed in elegant prose and sealed with a kiss. So the next time you come across a collection of love letters from the Victorian era, take a moment to appreciate the timeless power of words and the enduring legacy of human emotion. Now back to the video. Men would leave calling cards at a lady's home. If she accepted, he'd be invited to a formal visit. These visits took place in the late afternoon, hence the term afternoon call, and they were an essential part of the courtship ritual. During these calls, a man would formally introduce himself to a woman's family and express his interest in her. The conversation was typically polite and reserved, focusing on topics such as literature, art, and music. Physical contact was strictly prohibited, so the couple would engage in small talk while maintaining a safe distance. The goal of the afternoon call was to establish a foundation of mutual respect and decorum before progressing to more intimate stages of courtship. It involved a strict code of conduct that dictated how men and women should behave, and families, especially the woman's, had immense control over the process. Oh, and we almost forgot to mention that the goal of courtship was always marriage. So no flings, no hookups, and no emotional attachments that didn't lead to the altar. If this time period has piqued your interest, stick around. You won't want to miss our bonus fact. In Victorian times, a young woman was never left alone with a suitor. All interactions between a man and woman had to take place under the watchful eye of a chaperone, usually a mother or trusted older woman. Men had to seek permission from a woman's father before calling on her, and a woman of good reputation wouldn't dare be seen in public alone with a man who wasn't a relative or fiancé. Chaperones were essential to ensure that the courtship remained proper and respectable. They also acted as gatekeepers, carefully monitoring the interactions between the couple and making sure things didn't get too cozy. And yes, it was common for a chaperone to sit in the room while two people went on their first date. That's right. While they sipped their tea, catching up on the latest news, and perhaps discussing the weather, the chaperone would sit close by pretending to read a book, but actually listening intently to every word that was said. Sometimes the chaperone would comment on the selection of music being played or inquire about upcoming events. But for the most part, they allowed the young couple to enjoy their time in the parlor. At the end, tip no. 1. Strict rules and etiquette. No. 2. Parental and chaperone involvement. Tip no. 3. Love letters and calling cards. Now, let's talk about the art of flirtation in Victorian times. Forget emojis and DMS. No. 4. Afternoon visits and parlor conversations. Most courtship took place in the parlor of the woman's home. No. 5. The goal was always marriage. Remember when we mentioned that courtship was a precursor to marriage? Tip 6. Secret romances. While some Victorians abided by these rigid rules, others, especially those in lower social classes, were more relaxed. Hopefully, you enjoyed this trip back to the Victorian era and gained some insight into the fascinating world of courtship. Hey, it's me. Did you know that in the Victorian era, if a woman wanted to show that she was interested in a man, she might drop her glove and then hold it to her lips? How many of these Victorian courtship customs do you already know? In today's video, I'll explore 16 of the most fascinating ones from how to tell if a lady liked you to how to propose and everything else in between. A suitor had to demonstrate several things: excellent moral character, financial security, social decency, and preferably a decent mustache. Breaking an engagement was scandalous and could lead to legal or social consequences, especially for the woman. A single rumor could derail an entire courtship. A woman who was too forward, too opinionated, or too educated might be deemed unmarriageable. Respectable men might still visit actresses, dancers, or courtesans in secret, but never marry them. Many Victorian courtships ended in heartbreak. Parents might forbid a match due to class, religion, or wealth. A fan held to the lips, "Kiss me." A glove dropped, "I want to talk." Love was real, but gender roles were stark. A woman's financial and social survival often depended on securing a good match. So, what do you think? Which Victorian courtship custom surprised you the most? Did you learn anything new? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. A ring worn on the middle finger of the left hand, engaged but not happy. I can create a fictional scene, either accurate, exaggerated for humor, or both. Or maybe you'd like to request a different historical era or topic for a future episode. You decide. Either way, I appreciate you watching and look forward to bringing you more historical insights soon. A handkerchief embroidered with initials, you up? What are some of the unique ways that Victorians showed affection without actually saying it? Let us know in the comments. A man might delay too long and lose his chance. A woman might find herself courted only for her dowry, not her company. There was no swiping left. Once rejected, the options were limited and reputations were slow to heal. It was a time when societal pressures and expectations often took precedence over love and happiness. A scandal in the Victorian era could ruin a reputation and put an end to any hope of marriage. An engaged couple might still be chaperoned, but could begin to exchange more personal letters or small symbolic gifts. A bit more physical affection might be tolerated. A kiss behind the haystack wasn't unheard of. However, even here, a woman's virtue was closely guarded, and marriage was still the expected outcome. While the rigid rules of the upper classes may have been relaxed, the ultimate goal remained the same. The engagement period lasted until the wedding, which could be months or even years in the planning. The man took all the risk. He made the approach, visited the home, paid compliments, and proposed. The woman's role was largely reactive but strategic. She could encourage or discourage a suitor through her responses and body language. It was a delicate dance of gestures and etiquette. 8. Courtship was a public performance. It's hard to imagine today, but back then, the whole process was like a carefully staged drama. Families often paraded their eligible daughters at balls, teas, garden parties, anywhere where a handsome young man might be lurking. At formal balls, dances like the waltz or quadrille were one of the few ways couples could have limited physical contact. Even this was regulated. A woman could only dance with a gentleman if formally introduced. One waltz together meant nothing. 2 or more in one night, that could spark serious gossip or even imply a budding engagement. Can you imagine having everyone wondering about your relationship status based on how many dances you shared with someone? Now that would be awkward. For women, it was a rare chance to mingle and flirt while still maintaining decorum. Men, on the other hand, had to keep up an appearance of dignity, restraint, and respect. Any flamboyance or over-emotion would have been frowned upon. Imagine being watched by an entire ballroom full of people while trying to woo your crush. Pressure much? If a young lady laughed too loudly or danced too many times with the same gentleman at a ball, tongues would wag. 9. Dancing was a rare moment of physical contact. 10. Suitors were expected to have excellent manners. 11. Engagements were practically binding. Once a man proposed and was accepted, it was almost as serious as being married. 12. Reputation was everything. 13. Working class courtship, slightly more relaxed. In the working classes, courtship happened at local fairs, church socials, or Sunday strolls. 14. Broken hearts and doomed romances. 15. The secret language of objects. Victorians loved encoded affection. 16. Romantic, but rarely equal. Women were seen as delicate, passive, emotional, while men were considered rational, decisive, and protective. Now that you're a true blue expert on Victorian courtship, would you like to see a dramatized or comedic version of a Victorian courtship? Hello, my loves. Today we're finishing up our foray into Victorian courtship with part 4, which will cover everything from the dreaded dowries to shocking elopements. So put on your fanciest bonnet and let's get into it. So you've been seeing someone for a while and you think it's time to pop the question, what do you do? Easy, you hire a string quartet, invite over both sets of parents, and get down on one knee. Oh dear, she's Catholic. Never mind. The strictures of Victorian morality extended beyond sexual propriety. Religion and class were also major factors in determining who you could marry. A Protestant woman marrying a Catholic man? Scandalous. A nobleman marrying the grocer's daughter? Only in serialized fiction. In the Victorian era, men would sometimes call upon a lady without formally courting her. Did your family just arrange a marriage between you and a horrible, odious man you've never met? Then run away. It's the only option. Are you afraid you'll never marry because you don't have enough money? Well, now the bride would give up her life as she knew it and become a wife and soon-to-be mother. Or a funny mock dating guide from 1870. I can continue in either direction, just say the word. Once married, a woman's legal identity was largely absorbed into her husband's. Her days of reading romantic novels under her own name were over. Her primary job now was maintaining the home, raising the children, hosting polite society dinners, and never appearing in public without gloves. If she was lucky, her husband was kind. If not, well, divorce was nearly impossible until 1857, and even then, mostly available to men. Don't worry, bring something to the table and you'll be hitched in no time. A woman's dowry, a sum of money or goods she brought into the marriage, was a key bargaining chip for her family. The amount of a dowry depended on the family's wealth and status. Higher dowries were expected for higher status families. But beyond money, a woman was expected to demonstrate domestic skills, including embroidery, piano playing, fluent French, and the ability to manage servants without ever sweating. In rare cases, couples ran off to Gretna Green and in on the Scottish border where they could marry without parental consent. This was considered shocking but romantic, especially if the family disapproved of the match. The result, often social exile or an awkward re-entry with a baby and an apology. This meant he was interested in her. He was getting to know the family, but he hadn't declared serious intentions yet. That would come later if he decided to actually start courting her. Courting, on the other hand, implied a clear trajectory toward marriage, and people would talk. So if you were being called upon, you could relax and enjoy getting to know someone new. But if you were being courted, you should watch out. In fact, marrying below one's station was rare and almost always met with disapproval, inheritance risks, or outright disownment. Marrying someone from a lower social class was frowned upon. Servants were often forbidden to marry their employers, and interracial marriage was illegal and socially unacceptable. There were some exceptions to these rules, of course, but they were rare and often resulted in social ostracism. Okay, so maybe that's a little bit different from your proposal plans, but in the Victorian era, a formal proposal was a huge event. Did you take all those warnings about cold, calculating Victorian marriages to heart, and believe that romance was dead? And ended up heartbroken after realizing her real-life suitor didn't have a brooding, morally conflicted air about him? Yeah, me too. Ah, yes, it happened all the time. The Victorian era saw the rise of popular fiction aimed at a female audience. Young women read novels by Charlotte Brontë, Elizabeth Gaskell, and George Eliot, and dreamed of dashing, mysterious men who loved them ardently but had flaws that needed fixing. But their mothers warned them to watch for fortune hunters and flatterers. Many girls learned the hard way the difference between fiction and reality. Don't worry, it wasn't. Despite the rules, many Victorians did fall genuinely in love. In fact, the era saw a surge in romantic fiction that explored the complexities of love and marriage. Think Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, and Middlemarch. While the realities of courtship and marriage were often dictated by social norms and expectations, love was still a powerful force. Passion existed, but it was deeply repressed and often expressed in code through poems, slow-burning letters, or stolen glances. But in real life, as opposed to literature, many married for duty, stability, and social survival. It was usually very public and very formal, often involving both families. So it's safe to say they weren't doing the casual drop to one knee, pull out a ring from your pocket routine. And the stakes were high. Once accepted, the couple would be said to be engaged to be married, and society treated them accordingly. They could now address each other more familiarly, exchange tokens of affection like lockets of hair, and be seen together in public occasionally without a chaperone. But let's be clear, this doesn't mean they could canoodle in public. The engagement period could last several months to several years, depending on financial circumstances. It wasn't unusual to delay marriage until the groom had a stable income, a house, or even a good inheritance. And during that time, they would generally avoid PDA, but once they were engaged, it was socially acceptable for the happy couple to steal a kiss or two when no one was looking. However, a woman's reputation remained fragile. She would need to avoid any appearance of impropriety and could not be seen alone with her fiancé in public unless there was another adult present. This was essential to protect her value in the eyes of society. 17, the engagement, almost as formal as a wedding. 18, marriage was the career goal. Now that you're engaged, you might be wondering what comes next. Well, the answer is simple. You get married. Marriage was the ultimate goal of a Victorian woman's life. Careers were largely inaccessible unless you were a teacher, governess, or a novelist in secret. For men, marriage showed stability and success, especially for middle-class professionals. But love was not the most important factor when choosing a spouse. Status, wealth, and family background were major considerations, though the importance of these varied across social classes. While wealthy families sought to maintain their social standing through advantageous matches, poorer families might prioritize economic stability or the potential for social mobility. But don't worry, love was still very much on the menu. Indeed, love matches were fairly common, but the idea of falling in love before becoming engaged was still considered scandalous. See how to woo your true love the right way in our next episode. 19. Religion and class were deal breakers. Did your parents just set up a meeting with a nice Protestant family so you can meet their marriageable daughter? 20. The emotional side romance was real. 21. Romantic fiction fueled expectation. Have you heard the one about the young woman who read too much romance fiction? 22. Courting vs. calling, know the difference. Have you received a call but aren't sure what it means? Let's break down the terminology for you. 23. Eloping, scandal or salvation. 24. Dowries and domestic readiness. 25. And finally, after the wedding, congratulations. You survived the wedding and no one died. Now what? So what would you like to see next? Would you like a scene showing two Victorian characters awkwardly trying to fall in love through chaperone parlor chats and coded fan signals? The age of courtships is dead, right? Well, not so fast. Here are 33 chilling facts about how they did dating in the time of crinolines, corsets, and carrying on. Forget airbrushing your Instagram pics. The Victorians perfected the art of cultivating an impeccable public image. For women looking eligible, involved a pale complexion achieved with dangerous weed-based powders, a tiny waist from tight-laced corsets, and the occasional fainting episode, modesty, elegance, and the ability to speak without actually saying much. For men, a proper beard, respectable boots, and a job that wasn't too vulgar or too artistic unless he was very rich. And while we're at it, let's talk about what would ruin a courtship. Alfred Lord Tennyson, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and Goethe were popular choices. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. Wasn't just poetry. It was a full-on romantic declaration when whispered behind a fern at a garden party. Would you like to know more? Because I have a feeling this is gonna hurt. A woman might find herself unmarriageable, especially if there had been an engagement. Families would act as if the suitor had never existed, burning letters, removing photographs, and denying all knowledge like diplomatic spies. The true Victorian romantic wows their beloved with sonnets and odes. Just make sure your metaphors are on point and your similes are sparkling. Extra tip, if you're feeling brave, try writing a ballad about your undying love. The British are known for their stiff upper lip, and for good reason. When you're trying to navigate the choppy waters of Victorian romance, it's important to keep your cool. This luxurious fabric was all the rage in the Victorian era, and for good reason. But what do you do when you find yourself stuck trying to button them up? Simple. Take a deep breath, relax your fingers, and let those buttons slide on with ease. And gentlemen, if you find yourself struggling to remove your gloves, fear not. A true sign of masculinity is asking for assistance. Just make sure to tip your hat to the lovely lady who lends a hand. After all, chivalry isn't dead. It's soft, it's warm, and it smells faintly of old money. So what's the secret to winning your sweetheart's heart? Simple, wrap them in the finest cashmere sweater you can afford. Just make sure to avoid any itchy wool blends. Nobody wants a scratchy sweater ruining their date. Don't let a little thing like a dropped fan or misplaced glove ruin your chance at love. Just dust yourself off and carry on. After all, a true Victorian gentleman or lady never loses their composure. But which scent will make your date swoon? Simple, choose one that's light, floral, and preferably named after a mythological goddess. But remember, the most important rule of all is to be yourself. Unless yourself is a raging lunatic or a kleptomaniac, then maybe dial it back a notch. Happy hunting, my loves. May your courtships be swift and your marriages be blessed. Just watch out for those pesky secret admirers. They're lurking everywhere. Just remember, a little goes a long way. You'd hate for your cologne to be the reason your date starts fanning themselves, right? Just don't expect your date to burst into song. In the Victorian era, subtlety was the name of the game when it came to romance. Want to let your crush know you're interested? Simply drop your handkerchief next to theirs at the next social gathering. Bonus points if it happens during a lively game of croquet. Just don't expect them to pick up the hint right away. After all, it's all in the subtlety. 33. No filter needed. Etiquette was everything in Victorian England, and that meant knowing how to properly dispose of bodily fluids. When nature calls during a romantic rendezvous, simply excuse yourself to the powder room, pull out your trusty pocket handkerchief, and let Mother Nature do her thing. Just make sure to dab your mouth with a bit of lavender-scented linen before returning to your seat. After all, you want to keep that bouquet fresh. A woman who didn't marry by her late 20s might be labeled a spinster, a fate considered worse than a soggy cucumber sandwich. So, what should you do when disaster strikes? Simple, stay cool, and carry a spare set of stockings. Whether you've spilled ink on your favorite blouse or accidentally sat on a stray cat, a quick change of clothing can save the day. Just remember to keep your wits about you. A lady never reveals her mishap. Behold the Victorian dating survival kit. Yet some women embraced independence, choosing to live with sisters, write novels, teach, or even travel. Gasp! Quietly rebellious bluestockings often found their own kind of freedom, far from courtship, but rich in personal purpose. Courtships could be ruined by improper behavior at a ball, like dancing 3 times with the same man. Servants, siblings, and neighbors were all excellent sources of gossip. In the Victorian era, owning a motor car wasn't just a status symbol, it was a necessity for wooing the ladies. Never let those pesky feelings of love or desire get the better of you. Instead, express your undying devotion through subtle gestures like leaving gloves or handkerchiefs behind after a stolen kiss. Bonus points if said items are monogrammed. Speeding through the countryside in an open-top quadricycle showed off both your wealth and your daring spirit. Just remember to pack a parasol for your date. After all, a lady's gotta protect her complexion. A woman twirling her parasol might mean, I'm interested. A man adjusting his gloves while looking away might suggest nervous attraction. At a piano recital, choosing to play Chopin instead of Handel was considered bold emotion over order. Every sideways glance, every folded fan, every lace handkerchief might contain a secret message. Victorian courtship was basically spycraft with better manners. If a young man's intentions were not honorable, word could travel faster than a dropped glove at a picnic. Gasp! A past romance resurfacing, or worse, a previously broken engagement. A family secret like an illegitimate cousin or an uncle in trade. Or even something as minor as a letter falling into the wrong hands. 32. Scandal stoppers. 31. Spying is the name of the game. Mothers and aunts often spied on potential suitors with military precision. 30. How they actually flirted. Flirtation had to be clever and coded. 29. The secret side of passion. Although society emphasized propriety, many Victorians had very real passions. Behind closed doors, couples sent erotic poetry cloaked in metaphor, lockets containing one another's hair, and hid racy French novels behind prayer books. Still, any actual premarital intimacy was deeply taboo. If discovered, the consequences for a woman could be lifelong ruin. 28. Literature as a courtship blueprint. Young lovers would often quote lines from poetry or novels to express their feelings without saying them outright. 27. When it all went wrong. If a courtship ended, a gentleman might be quietly blacklisted from respectable homes. 26. Spinsterhood, the specter of the drawing room. Now that you've survived our whirlwind tour through Victorian dating pitfalls, it is time to meet the ultimate guide to navigating the treacherous waters of romance in the age of etiquette. No. 1. Gentlemen, start your engines. No. 2. Lock it up. The key to a successful Victorian courtship was keeping your emotions in check. No. 3. Unleash your inner poet. Forget roses and mixtapes. Number 4. The art of the sneeze. No. 5. Brace yourself for the worst. Accidents happen, especially when you're trying to impress your crush. No. 6. Keep calm and carry on. No. 7. The art of subtlety. Gone are the days of ghosting and direct messages. No. 8. Cashmere is the key. Who says romance is dead? Not us, especially when there's cashmere involved. No. 9. The glove conundrum. Gloves were a must-have accessory for any Victorian gentleman. Number 10. Embrace the power of scent. Perfume. The Victorian gentleman's secret weapon in the battle of the sexes. And there you have it, folks. Now you're armed with the ultimate Victorian dating survival kit.